Hello AP Gov and welcome to this quick Labor Day weekend review for the Unit 2 test. First of all, I apologize if you hear my dog's squeaky toy in the background because I'm upstairs where the dog is. But I just wanted to give you this quick review of Unit 2. The first thing that you guys had to do was take a look at the review of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. Hobbes basically comes up with the idea that government's job is basically to secure the rights of everybody. Locke takes that and expands upon it and says that everybody's equal because everybody has natural rights that they're born with. He initially says that they are life, liberty, and the pursuit of, and property. Rousseau basically says that society is ruled by everybody's decisions. Those decisions are called the general will, and everybody has a role in making the general will. So they all have an idea about something that we call the social contract, and they all kind of come up with their own versions of the social contract. And you need to know, obviously, that Locke has a major role for the United States. And so then we took a look at the Declaration of Independence and what its importance to American government and American society is. Obviously, we talked about how it is ultimately just a breakup letter and that's what we need to look at it as. It does not create any government. It just basically comes up with 5 major principles that we believe in, and those are the ones that you are going to need to know and recognize: that all men are created equal, that we have unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that the government's job is to secure those rights, that the government gets the power to do that through the people, and that if it doesn't do its job, the people have the right to revolt. And then obviously there's a connection between this one, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, and the Declaration of Independence. In fact, let me see, there we go. So now you can see the direct correlation there. Once we declared our independence, then what we did was we created our government called the Articles of Confederation. And so basically you need to remember that the Articles of Confederation were created to be the opposite of what we just broke away from. So it's the opposite of British government. At that time, it was a strong central government. So we created the opposite of that. We created we created a decentralized government, otherwise, in this case, known as a confederation. You are going to need to know what the setup of the government looked like, which was basically a confederation, one branch of government, no executive, no judicial. And you're going to need to know the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. And there were 7 weaknesses of the Articles that you are going to need to know. And then what ultimately happens that kills the Articles of Confederation is Shays' Rebellion. And so you're going to need to know the connection there between Shays' Rebellion and the ending of the Articles of Confederation. From there, we then took a look at how the Constitutional Convention was set up, and their look at how they were going to create a new constitution. At the Constitutional Convention, you have a group of colonists known as the Federalists who want to create a strong central government. Then you have another group called the Anti-Federalists who want basically a continuation of the Articles, just updated and fixed. And basically, you're going to need to know the beliefs of these 2 groups, and you're also going to need to know the fact that they will eventually compromise with each other in order to create the Constitution, and that there are 5 compromises that you are going to need to know. For each one of those 5, you are going to need to know the issue, and you are going to need to know the outcome. And so it is important to know those. And if you need some help on that, you can contact me. Um, then we are discussing right now, or your homework. Well, let's go back here for a second. At the Constitutional Convention, when it was over, let's do this. The Federalists, or at least three of them, are going to publish a group of essays called the Federalist Papers. And we studied two of those, Federalist number 10, and we also studied Federalist number 51. Federalist number 10, you remember, was all about the idea of factions or interest groups and how we can protect ourselves from the bad elements of factions. And then Federalist 51 was about the necessity of checks and balances. And so you're going to need to know those, and you're going to need to know the arguments for each of those. We also are going to, you're going to become familiar with the anti-federalist paper known as Brutus I. And Brutus I is basically going to explain why the anti-federalists don't like the Constitution. And so those are things that you are going to be familiar with. I can guarantee you that there is going to be at least one or two multiple choice questions on the AP exam about Federalist 10 and Federalist 51. And oftentimes the argumentative essay will utilize one or both of these. So that is why Federalist 10 and Federalist 51 are so important. Then we finally get to or look at the Constitution. And I'm going to move that down here a little bit to give myself a little bit more room. And it won't let me do that. But anyway, when we take a look at the Constitution, we're going to focus really on the idea of federalism, and that federalism is basically the concept of having layers of government, that we have different governments. We have both a federal government, and we have a state government, and we have local governments. So fed, state, local, and that our system, has these, whereas up here we had federal and state, but the power shift was much more in favor of the states and very little power at the federal, whereas here in federalism, it's much more of a balance between the three, and they all have their roles. So for federalism, we're also going to take a look at two Supreme Court cases. Cases that deal with the issue of federalism and the relationship between the state and federal governments. And so one of those is going to be McCulloch versus Maryland. I spelled that wrong. And the other one is going to be US v. Lopez. Both of them have to deal with federalism. McCulloch is going to have a different outcome than US v. Lopez. Basically, the federal government is going to get what it wants in McCulloch, whereas here in US v. Lopez, the federal government is going to lose. And so we will go over that the day before the test. But this is basically a rundown of everything that you are going to need to know for this unit. Also, let me go here with federalism. You also need to know the different grants that we talked about on the video that I showed you. That you've got three kinds of grants that you're going to have to know. You're going to have to know categorical grants and how they disperse money to the states, formula grants, how they disperse money to the states, and then very different from those three are going to be block grants and how block grants differ from the other two. These two give power more to the federal government. Block grants give more power to the state governments. So you're going to need to know all of this for the test on Wednesday. This will be the element of the multiple choice questions. And then I'm telling you right now, we are going to be doing a SCOTUS comparison. So you are going to have to know these two cases very well. And one of these cases will be utilized in that FRQ. And so we'll once again go over that and review that on Tuesday. But this is a little short review for you to look over. If you have any questions, email them to me, or I will see you Tuesday morning on office hours or Wednesday morning on office hours. But this is a little nice review for Unit 2. Take it easy.